Salut à tous et bienvenue dans l'épisode 28 du podcast Up and Thunder, c'est Pierre qui vous parle. Je vous fais juste cette petite intro pour vous prévenir que la suite de l'épisode sera en anglais. Pour la deuxième fois, on a eu la chance d'accueillir Brandon Rabar, insider du Thunder pour The Daily Thunder. Donc, si vous avez des soucis de compréhension, si vous avez envie d'avoir une traduction de certains passages ou si vous avez des questions sur certains passages, n'hésitez pas à nous envoyer un message sur Twitter ou sur YouTube ou n'importe où. On se fera un plaisir de traduire et de vous répondre. Et dans tous les cas, j'espère que vous allez apprécier cet épisode parce que c'est toujours très intéressant de parler avec quelqu'un qui est au contact direct avec la franchise. Et sur ce, parlons en anglais maintenant, c'est parti. Hello everybody and welcome in Up and Thunder, the only French podcast about OKC. I'm Pierre and for this new English episode, the second in English, I'm with Constant. Constant, how are you?
Fine. Hello, everybody. Nice to record another episode in English with a very special guest once again.
Yeah, as you can get, we are in English because we have a special guest. For the second time, we have the honor to talk with Brandon Rabar, Thunder Insider for the Daily Thunder, one of the best for
the
us.
Best.
Brandon, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a real pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for the compliments as well. I appreciate that.
I can't wait to have your opinion about the next draft. The last time you came in your podcast was in January. And now the season is over. We have the result of the lottery. So what are your final feelings about this year for the Thunder? Do you believe it's an achievement or something good or something bad because of the lottery?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think for the most part, the season was a success because there were three things I think that the Thunder wanted to happen this season. And one of them was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander takes the next step and looks like he can become, the franchise cornerstone, a future all-star. And if you ask me and many other members of the media, I think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander actually deserved to be an all-star this year. Like, he was that good.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at his numbers and you compare him to a couple of the guys that made the all-star game over him, he had better numbers than them. And with less spacing and, he didn't have the teammates that the other guys did. But Shai absolutely stepped up and looks like a definite franchise cornerstone future all-star player. So that was the first thing they wanted to see happen, and that happened. And then the Thunder also wanted to see one of the other young guys step up and look like they could be, a key member of the core. And that could include guys like Poku and Maladone and Baisley. And all those guys showed flashes, but the guy that really stepped up and looked like he's going to be, a key member of this team going forward is Lou Dort. Lou Dort was fantastic this year. Everybody knows he plays elite defense, and he did that again. But his offense took the next step this season. And for his second season, an undrafted guy to play like he did on the offensive end when he's supposed to be a defensive specialist was incredible. Now, the one thing that the Thunder wanted to happen this season that didn't quite happen was they wanted, to get good results from the draft lottery.
Yeah.
And so the second half of the season, they intentionally tried to lose as many games as possible so that they get a high draft pick. And they did a good job of losing the games.
Sure.
But unfortunately, the ping pong balls didn't go their way. And they could have had 2 top 5 picks. At the very least, everybody thought they'd have 1 top 5 pick, and that didn't happen. Even though there was a 76% chance of it happening, they ended up with 6 and 18. Not worst case scenario, but second worst case scenario for that. But so I think it was mostly a success. But then everything that the Thunder could have done, they did. But then luck kind of bit them in the tail end. They couldn't do anything about the unlucky bounces of the ping pong balls.
The 6th pick in the lottery is not such bad luck in the way of you have 6 very good guys in this draft. If you end up with the 7th pick, it would be dramatic. But the 6th pick, even though you don't have 1 or 2 top 5 picks, it's not a nice reward, but it's good at last. It's not dramatic. It's partially good. You could end up with a good player in this draft with a 6th pick.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm glad you said that because all season long, everybody thought that this was a 5-player draft, meaning that, there were 5 really, really good players. And then, after that, it was kind of a drop off. Well, over the last several weeks, Scotty Barnes has stepped up and he's now in the conversation with those top guys. So like you said, the worst case scenario would have been 7 or on, but the Thunder got a top 6 pick, and you want one of those top 6 guys: Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley, Jonathan Kuminga, or Scotty Barnes. So now the Thunder are going to get one of those guys. So it's actually not nearly as bad as it first seemed when draft lottery night happened.
Mm-hmm.
Just before talking more about the draft, you said that Shai took a big step in his career. And there is some national media who talk about Shai and say he's not in the timeline of the Thunder right now. And all these things, Constant and me, we think it's very stupid because Shai right now, as you said, is an all-star player.
Shai is the timeline, in fact.
Yeah. We think Shai is the timeline because he's the go-to guy right now. He's an all-star player, and I think you can build, we can build around him. So what is your thought about these takes from national media?
Yeah, I think it's really stupid. I'm with both of you. It's absolute nonsense. I even tweeted something about it because it's so dumb. Yeah. It makes no sense. Like you said, Shai is the timeline. Everything that the Thunder are doing now is to build around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. When you look at his numbers, they were elite numbers. They weren't just good numbers. They were elite. And he was doing that. Most of the stars that are out there putting up big numbers have other stars to help them and to help them with spacing, and it helps their numbers out. Shai did all this, with rookies and sophomore guys, undrafted guys, second round guys. And what Shai did was phenomenal. So no, the Thunder are not going to trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The whole reason, the logic behind them saying that is so dumb, because they're saying, well, he's too old, and you might as well trade him for picks. Well, the whole reason you have picks is so that you can hopefully get guys as good as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it.
So it's ludicrous. The Thunder aren't going to trade Shai. It's nonsense. Any Thunder fans out there in France, don't listen to it. It's not going to happen.
And do you believe Shai can be disappointed if the Thunder don't go to the playoff for maybe 2 or 3 years? Like he want to go outside of OKC because of this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because people talk about that, and if it were to happen for 2 or 3 years, maybe he could start feeling disappointed. But what people don't forget is Shai made the playoffs both his first season and second season, and the Thunder were right there competing for the play-in until Shai got hurt with his injury, and then they shut down Al Horford, and then the second half of the season this season was the only time that Shai hasn't been on a winning team, and he wasn't even playing. So, I mean, so far, when people are afraid that Shai is going to get tired of losing, so far it's only been half a season, and it was a shortened season because of COVID, and even then he wasn't even playing when the Thunder were losing. So, next season, I don't think the Thunder will be a playoff team because, it's still going to be a rebuild. But then after that, I expect the Thunder, between all these draft picks, and then they'll have, some money, I think they'll start to be a playoff team again. And I think that Shai is smart enough. I think he understands what's going on. I think that he trusts Sam Presti to build a winner around him. If Shai hadn't been winning his first 3 seasons already, and there were going to be a couple more seasons of losing, I would think that might be the case. But he's already won a lot, and he's only going to have to lose for a season or 2 before they get back to being a playoff team. So I think Shai's a smart dude, and he gets it, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and Shai could see that there is some kind of progression in the roster, in the guys that the Thunder could bring. It would not be a situation like it was with Devin Booker, for example, in his early years with the Suns, when they were losing seasons and he was good, but his teammates were good, and they were winning like 22 games a season. I think that the Thunder might have its worst season this year in year one of the rebuild. And I think that it could only increase the record year after year because you have Shea, who will be even better than he was this season. You will have Dort, Poku, and other players who will step up, who will increase their level. And I could think that if the Thunder are losing more games like this year, yeah, it could be a little bit frustrated. But if Shea sees that next year you win like 33 games and next season you win like 38, 40, or 40 games, I don't think he will be frustrated with the situation of the Thunder.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like you said, if he sees progression and he sees that the team is getting better and he sees that the young players around him are getting better, and like you said, it's going to happen. I mean, Poku was so much better after he came back from the G League bubble. I'm really excited about Poku, and I remember both of you guys like Poku a lot when we talked last time.
Especially me.
Yeah, that's right. I think that the jump that Poku took from before the bubble and after the G League bubble was huge. So I expect a big leap from Poku this upcoming season. Guys like Maledon, like you said, Dort. Plus, the Thunder are getting a top 6 pick and, 3 top 18 picks and maybe even 2 top 10 picks if they decide to trade up, if they use 16 and 18 to trade up. So they're getting even more young talent on this team. Plus, for right now, Kemba Walker is on the team. I don't know if he'll stay on the team, but they have some pieces now. And with Shea back, I mean, they're going to be better than they were the second half of the season. Absolutely. And whether they get Jonathan Kuminga or Scotty Barnes, those guys are going to help winning. So like you said, I think that Shea will see progression in the team and he'll understand that the future is bright, just like all the fans do. I think that Shea is a smart, the first time I met Shea and saw him in a press conference, the first thing I thought was, wow, this guy is smart for being a 21-year-old kid. Like he is really, really sharp. And it stayed that way. I think that he gets it.
And he's such a leader, such leadership in his third season in the NBA. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. I think that having Chris Paul as a mentor last season was huge for Shea. I think that he picked up a lot of things from Chris Paul on the court, but I think the leadership that Chris Paul brought, I think Shea already had that in him, just the way he's built, like his character and his integrity and his intelligence. But being around Chris Paul and soaking up, his leadership skills, the way that Shea led this season was phenomenal. And all the things he said, even when he wasn't playing, when he was cheering the team on from the sideline, and then just the things that he would say to the guys and about the guys to encourage them. I mean, I think that as a 22-year-old, you couldn't ask for a better leader than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about players' development this season, but during the last part of the season, OKC was in tanking mode and with all those losses. How can you see those games impact the players and their development? Like, for example, we have some concern here about Theo Maledon because he was not very comfortable in this situation. I mean, players like maybe Ty Jerome or Moses Brown and another Thunder legend were very comfortable in this situation because they have big numbers and all those things. But for Maledon, that was difficult. So how can you see all these loses time impact players' development?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the main thing is all these guys got a lot of minutes, which is important for you young players just to get the experience. And like in the case of Theo Maledon, he led the Thunder in minutes this season. As a second-round rookie, he played more minutes than anybody this season for the Thunder. So, I think you made a good point. He didn't seem comfortable, and I think it's really because he was playing a role that he wasn't supposed to be playing. The Thunder drafted him to be Shea's backup, and with Shea out, Theo had to take on a bigger piece of the offense. He had to, and as a rookie, a 19-year-old rookie, it's kind of tough to balance, when do I score? When do I set other guys up? And he was just kind of in a position that I don't think he's going to be in moving forward because Shea's going to be the one that's going to be taking on the brunt of the offense and taking the most shots, setting the guys up, and everything running through him. And then also Teo didn't have Dort for long stretches. He wasn't playing with Al Horford, so the talent around him wasn't as good either. Now it was good for, I think, for all the development of these guys that they got all these minutes. But I think as far as a comfort level for Teo, I think he'll be much more comfortable going forward because he'll be in the role that he was supposed to be in and not in this, bigger role that he was in this season.
About Theo, there's the thing that Ty Jerome definitely have a better second part of the season than Maledon, but their role was quite different. But you can't acknowledge the fact that Ty Jerome and Maledon are in a certain relationship, or they are in concurrence. They play at the same spot, the point guard spot, even if their their style play are different. But in France we have big love for Ty Jerome second part of the season, and we didn't saw that much of Maledon. So are you concerned about this kind of concurrence between Ty Jerome and Theo Maledon for next season, because you will have a full season probably of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? You will have to give some minutes to Kemba Walker, so they will have less minutes. Like you said, they have benefits big minutes last season. Next season they will have less minutes. Do you think that the Thunder, we have to say, okay, we need to focus more on Maledon and to give less minutes to Ty Jerome, or there could be a balance of minutes who will be equal?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I like about Teo and Ty is that they're both point guards, but they can also both play off the ball. So they can both play the point guard or shooting guard positions. And I think they have really good chemistry when they're out there together. It was tough this season, the second half of the season, because I think that they could thrive together on the bench. I think that they could be a really good 1-2 punch off the bench. But, with Teo having to start this season so much, the second half of the season, and then Jerome coming off the bench, he was playing against, a little bit lesser players. And like you said, Jerome's role is just different. He's more of a spot-up shooter. He was getting guys involved and setting guys up, too, and playing point guard. But I think so much of the offensive burden was on Teo this season. I think that if he's just kind of leading a bench unit with Ty, that they can work really well together. I think that their chemistry right off the bat was nice. But I do think, one of the biggest question marks going forward is the allotment of minutes. Like, who's going to play how many minutes? Because like you said, there's just only so many guard minutes to go around, and you've already got Shai, Kemba, Lou Dort, Ty, and Teo. That's 5 guards for 4 guard spots. Even they could play 3 guards at once like they did last season.
Yeah.
But then you also have, is Svi Mykhailiuk going to come back? We don't know that yet. And then what if the Thunder draft a guard? I mean, what if they move up and get like Jalen Suggs, or what if Jalen Suggs falls to them, or what if with their second pick they get somebody like Moses Moody or James Bouknight? I mean, if they draft a guard high, then I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't think anybody knows yet what will happen with Teo Maledon and Ty Jerome's minutes yet. I think that'll just kind of depend on who they draft and how the training camp battles kind of play out.
Yeah. We already said a lot of names during this episode, but we didn't talk about Darius Bazley. How do you consider him in the Thunder future? Because, like you said, Scotty Barnes or Jonathan Kuminga can be here in the next month, and it's directly in the Bazley position. We also have Poku in the 4th position. It will be also a very concurrence thing, and a lot of not too much minute to give to all these players. So do you think Bazley can be a part of the future, or it might be traded during this summer?
Yeah, I think that Bazley is probably the one player this season that didn't meet expectations going into the season. We already talked about how Shai and Dort exceeded expectations. And then, I think that the rookies performed really well between Maledon and Poku. They at least showed flashes of the talent. Jerome, all these young guys at least hit their expectations. I think that
Yeah.
Baisley was the one guy coming into this season everybody was kind of high on and was hoping to take a leap, and he didn't, honestly. Now, when you look at just his numbers, his points and his rebound average were pretty solid, but he played a lot of minutes and he took a lot of shots. The
Yeah.
biggest issue was his 3-point shooting. When he came back from his shoulder injury, he was a lot more aggressive, attacking the basket, dunking the ball, getting to the free throw line. So that was really encouraging. But he shot over 5 3-pointers a game and only hit less than 30% of them. So his efficiency, it wrecked his efficiency overall. I think that he's the biggest question mark. Like you said, if they get Scotty Barnes or Jonathan Kuminga, that's automatically your starting four. I think that Baisley could be included in a trade this offseason. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think that his value is higher on the Thunder to try to still, because he's still young and he's still got a lot of physical tools, and he showed at different times that he could be a solid player. So I think the Thunder will prefer to try to see if he's still got some talent and can be a part of this core going forward, rather than trade him for cheap and not get very much for him, unless there's a team out there who also sees, a high ceiling in him that would be willing to give up something of value for him. But I think going forward, I would be surprised if he's still a starter. I think he'll probably come off the bench because I don't think he's going to be a starting center, a small ball center, and I don't think that he'll be the starting 4 or 3 moving forward. So I think that he'll have, either a small ball 5 off the bench or a bench power forward moving forward for the Thunder.
We need also to remember the defensive season of Baisley, because even though he disappointed in offense, in defense, he took such big leap that nobody was expected. To be honest, we thought that Baisley could be a guy who could score almost 17, 18 points a game, but we didn't expect Baisley to be almost the second best defender of this Thunder team. And even though he disappointed, we need to maybe adjust our expectation on Baisley, maybe not expect too much on the offensive side of the court, but much on the defensive side.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We don't talk about his defense enough because everybody just looks at his offensive efficiency and how that was disappointing this season. But he was really good defensively this season, and he was always taking on different guys every week as far as position goes. Like one week he would guard a small forward, next week he'd guard a power forward, the next game he might guard a center. So the Thunder kind of played him all over the place. Dort would always get the other team's best offensive scorer unless it was a big, and then Baisley would usually take him. So I do think that Bays has some really good versatility and defensive potential. And like I said, I think that the Thunder still, want to see what Baisley's got because he's still young and he still has the physical tools. So I think he'll still get a fair shake this season. I think he'll get minutes, and I think the Thunder will still try to see if he can be a player moving forward.
Like you said, he's still very young, so I don't know if we can just let him go or just say, okay, it's not a part of the future. But like you said, expectation, he didn't respond to the expectation this season. But I believe he still has some potential. And Constant and me always talk about him like a small ball 5, and Mark Daigneault didn't try this year, not a lot. Do you think it can be really a thing in the future, or is too small, too thin to do that?
Yeah, I actually said on the Daily Thunder podcast last week, because we were trying to figure Baisley out too. And I think that ultimately he could be a bench small ball 5. I don't think that you want him to be your starting 5, but I think off the bench, if the Thunder, because when you look at the Thunder bench right now, there's so many different guys that you want to give minutes to, these young guys. And if Deck's going to play next season, he's kind of naturally a small forward or a power forward. So that takes up one of the spots if he's going to get minutes. And then all these draft picks that are coming in. So I because the Thunder don't have many centers on the roster now besides maybe Isaiah Roby, and nobody really knows what Isaiah Roby is either. Is he a 4 or a 5? So right now I could see Roby and Bazley kind of being the 4 and the 5 off the bench, and which player plays which position, I'm not sure. They're kind of both interchangeable as the 4 and the 5, I think, off the bench.
I mean, you could do, if you want to, if the Thunder draft Scottie Barnes, you could do a thing where you have a small ball lineup with Bazley at the 4 and Barnes at the 5, or Barnes at the 4 and Bazley at the 5. It wouldn't be such dramatic. I think it could be a possibility because those guys are such good defenders, especially Barnes, that Bazley is not a bad rebounder also. You could have, if you have really big problems at the 5 position, or if you didn't draft a big like Kay Jones or Isaiah Jackson, you could have this opportunity to have minutes with Bazley at the 5 or Barnes at the 5. And I mean, that could be a thing that Dane could test next season. That would be a thing that, if you want, do you want to see such things next year? Is the Thunder getting with Barnes at the draft?
Yeah, I think that's what's great about Barnes. If the Thunder get Barnes, he can literally play 1 through 5 because he's done it, which is incredible. I mean, he's got the greatest versatility in the entire draft. So he really can play a small ball 5. And his wingspan, he's got like a 7'3" wingspan. So it would be no problem for him to play a small ball 5. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you could put Bazley there too. The Thunder would have options, and that's what's great about how they're building this team. Almost everybody that they draft now or trade for or bring in usually has length. They can usually handle the ball. They can usually play make. And I think that's what they see in both Bazley and Barnes. Guys who, are 6'9", but they can handle and pass and have great versatility. And Sam Presti's all about that versatility right now.
Yeah. Sure. We talk about his defense, but in offense, how can you see Barnes used? Because he has no shoot, he can score from the 3-point line, and how can you use him in offense? Because he only can maybe have the ball in his hand to create, like you said, and maybe play the pick and roll as a roll man. So do you play in at the 5 in offense with only 4 shooters around him, or can you see other way of playing with him?
Yeah, that would be the big question on Barnes because he can't shoot, and we see these draft workouts, and of course everybody can shoot in these videos because it's just an open gym and we're just seeing the highlights. So but when you look at the numbers, he shot like 27.5%, I think, from 3 this season at Florida State. So he's not a good shooter, but he can. His greatest skill on offense is his passing ability. He passes like a point guard, and he can play in the pick and roll. He's a pretty solid finisher. He's good about attacking the basket, and he's athletic. He can dunk the ball really well. Like all those things around the basket, he can score. He's not a great ISO player, creating his own shot, but I think that he has potential for that because of his ball handling and his vision and his basketball IQ. So I think that he has that ability. I don't know if he'll ever become a shooter, but I do think that he'll become a guy that can go get his own shot, set other guys up for shots. And I think that he can still be a positive on the offensive end. Kind of like, he's been compared so much to Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Draymond can't shoot, but he's still a positive on the offense because he helps everybody on the offense get better. Now, Draymond was surrounded by shooters. And I think that's what you have to do with Barnes as well. I think that he needs to be surrounded by shooters because in today's NBA, you don't want more than one non-shooter out on the floor. And I think that, if Barnes is your small ball center, then the other 4 guys have to shoot. Or if he's your starting 4, then your center, you need to get a center that can shoot. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the Thunder will try to do going forward.
I can see him like an instant solution to the double team Shea as last year because he can play in short roll too. like Shea was his double team and he gives the ball to Barnes, who become the second creator, and then can drive and kick to Dort to basically to Poku in the corner. That's the best way for me to use him.
Yeah, I think so. I think that he is a really, really good creator. You know, a lot of the draft analysts are saying that he's a better point guard than a lot of the point guards in this draft. You know, and he's slotted to be, you know, a power forward, but his playmaking ability, his creating ability for others is so good that he can be, you know, the team's second creator behind Shea. Absolutely. And I think that he will get some defensive attention just because of his size and athletic ability. You know, if he drives and kicks, but you got to respect his drive so he can kick it to an open shooter. I think that he can be, you know, I like Scotty Barnes a lot, honestly. That's why I'm so happy that the Thunder got a top 6 pick, because worst case scenario, they're either going to get Kuminga, who's been, you know, a consensus top 5 pick this entire season, or they get Barnes. So it's a win-win either way.
I mean, maybe the best case scenario for Barnes is to be used at the 5 position, the center position, with 4 other players who can be Kemba at the point guard, Shea at the small guard, Dort at the small forward, and Poku at the fourth. Because you will have only one non-shooters, maybe if Dort is not really a very consistent shooter, you could say. But you could have the defense of Barnes, who could defend from 1 to 5 position. He's probably the best defender in this draft. And you have, on the offensive side, you have 4 shooters plus the creation of Barnes. So, you know, maybe for him, his future is not really at the 4 spot, even though he's predicted as a small forward. But maybe like a Draymond, he could really be useful at the 5 position with 4 shooters around him and his capacity of create to other.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And what's nice about that lineup that you mentioned is that Poku is 7 feet tall. Yeah. So, you know, if Poku's great because next to Barnes, because, you know, Barnes is a better defender. You don't want Poku. He's too skinny to be guarding guys, you know, like Jokic and Embiid and some of those centers that he would have to face. But at 7 feet tall and with his wingspan, he's a great rebounder down low. He's a great help defender. He's a good shot blocker. So now you've got Barnes, like you said, the best defender in this entire class, and he's got such a great physique. He's got an NBA ready body, so he can bang down low. Even though he's 6'9", he can bang down with those centers. And then with Poku's help, and then you got Dort also on the defensive end. So I think that defense would be solid. And then on the offense, like you said, he's surrounded by 4 guys who can shoot. And even if Dort's the worst shooter of those 4, he still shot over 34% this season from 3. So his 3 ball is improving, and you still have to respect it. If you don't respect it, if you don't close out on him, he can hit some threes. Yeah. So, yeah, I honestly like that lineup a lot. If Kemba Walker stays with the Thunder, that lineup you mentioned is really, really fun to think about.
So you will be very happy if the Thunder drafts Scotty Barnes, but can you see with all those picks this year, the 6, the 16 and the 18 pick, can you see the Thunder trade up maybe to have one of those 4 guys, the 4 big guys in the draft, or maybe just trade up to the top 10 with the 16 and the 18 pick?
Yeah, I think that Sam Presti will do everything he can to try to trade up with all those picks. He's got so many. And like you said, we talked about how this is a 6-player draft, but the top 4 are kind of on their own level. And then, you know, and then Barnes and Kuminga are on another level. And then there's a drop off after that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you can get one of those guys, I don't think that they'll be able to get Cade Cunningham. So I just kind of forget about that. But they could, and I honestly think that the Rockets are going to take Jalen Green at number 2. I know there's been talk of whether it's going to be Green or Mobley, but from what I'm seeing, I would be surprised if they don't take Green. So then all of a sudden you got Mobley available at number 3, and of course Jalen Suggs is still there as well. So if the Cavs were willing to trade, you know, say 6, 16, and 18, and then you take on Kevin Love or something like that, but then you get Evan Mobley. And then Shea and Evan Mobley 1-2 punch would be just phenomenal. Yeah. Or if Mobley is taken at number 3 by the Cavs, and then Jalen Suggs is there, the Raptors might be willing to drop 2 spots because they've worked out Barnes and Kuminga. They've shown some interest in Barnes and Kuminga. So maybe you could entice the Raptors with 6 and maybe 16, and then maybe another future pick. I don't know how much it would take. It depends on how much they like Barnes and Kuminga. But maybe it just takes 6 and 16 to trade up to get Jalen Suggs at number 4. But even if you had to add in another future first or maybe one of the young guys like Ty Jerome or Darius Baisley, if it takes that to move up to get Jalen Suggs, I trust Sam Presti ultimately, and he's got so many options. But yeah, I do think that they'll try to get one of those big 4 before they draft Barnes or Kuminga at 6 if they can.
I would really like the Thunder to send one of the future first pick rather than one of this year, if this possible, because if you can get the 3rd or 4th pick, that's good for me. But if you have to send the 16 and the 18, you will only end up with one rookie in this draft, one first-round rookie, and I think that the Thunder could benefit from having multiple rookies in this draft, even though you have to send one of the future year draft picks. It's a rebuild for the Thunder, so if you could have young prospects who are good quickly, it will be a good thing, and to sacrifice a little bit for the picks from the next years when the Thunder will be probably a playoff team and don't really need those young guys. I think that it could be a good thing for the Thunder to bring a good pick, like a top 4 pick, like you said, but also having a guy from those next 2 lottery pick or top 20 pick in the draft this year, rather than having one rookie in this draft class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would be very, very surprised if they gave up all 3 picks for anybody. If Evan Mobley was there, that would be really enticing just because I think that he's really special. And he would be the only guy I'd be willing to do that for. I wouldn't be willing to do that for Jalen Suggs. But if Mobley was there, I think that's something they'd have to really think about. But ultimately, I think that the Thunder want at least 2 first-rounders from this draft because this is a very good draft. It's a very deep draft. Yeah. And those guys, even once you get past 6, the guys from 7 to 18 that the Thunder will be able to draft, there's some really good players that will help the Thunder in those picks. So I could see them trading 6 and 16 or 6 and 18, but not all 3 of them. And the other thing that they could do is trade 16 and 18 to move into the top 10 again. And so then maybe they trade with the Kings at number 9. And then all of a sudden you have the 6th pick and the 9th pick. So you got 2 top 10 guys. Or the Pelicans would be willing to trade possibly. They need to free up some money so they can re-sign Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. And they've got some bad contracts like Eric Bledsoe. So maybe the Thunder could trade like the number 18 pick for the number 10 pick and take on Eric Bledsoe's contract. So then all of a sudden you got the 6, the 10, and the 16. I mean, the Thunder have so many options. And there's some teams like the Warriors and Pelicans and Kings and Cavs and Raptors who want to win right now. And the Thunder can maybe take advantage of that because those teams might be more willing to trade their draft picks if they think that they can win now. And the Thunder can take on bad contracts, which helps these teams out too.
We often talk about the possibility of trading up, but what are your thoughts about trading down? You spoke about the fact that the Kings, the Warriors, or the Pelicans are in winning mode now. And, if the Thunder are really not fan about Scottie Barnes or Jonathan Kuminga, if there is a possibility for the Thunder to, trade the 6th pick to the Pelicans or the Kings for the 9th pick and Marvin Bagley or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for example, because this team wants to win now and they want a higher prospect in Scottie Barnes who could bring now for this team. Do you think that this will be a possibility? Do you think that Sam Presti will explore those options, or he's really in the mood of, I'm only trading up and I'm not even thinking about trading down?
That's a good question. I think that Sam Presti is always open to anything. And like you said, if he doesn't really think that there's much, all the draft analysts and experts and everybody think that there's a big difference between Kuminga and Barnes and then the guys that you would get from like 7 to 10. But Sam Presti might not, and he's going to trust himself more than he trusts draft experts. So if Sam Presti thinks that if he can get Moses Moody or James Bouknight or Franz Wagner or one of those guys at 9 or 10, and they're just as good as Barnes and Kuminga are at 6, then yeah, he would do that. And, you know, maybe he gets another draft pick out of those players, or like you said, a guy like Alexander Walker, or gets a guy like Bagley. For sure, I think that Presti would explore that option at least. I think ultimately, I would be surprised if they trade down from 6, but it's always an option with Sam Presti. If he's going to do whatever he thinks, he very rarely loses a trade. So if they trade down, it's because he feels like he's getting other assets that more than make up for trading down.
Just before concluding this podcast, Brandon, do you have a prediction about this summer, like in the draft or maybe a free agent that will come to OKC? Do you have one you are pretty sure that will happen?
Oh, that's a good question. My biggest thing was I think that the Thunder will trade in the draft. I think that they will. They've got 6 picks, and they are not going to make 6 picks. I think that you'll see a lot of movement. Maybe they trade a couple of the second rounders to move up and get another first rounder. Maybe they trade. You mentioned Bagley with the Kings. Maybe they trade a couple second rounders for Bagley. Maybe they trade, maybe they trade for a disgruntled star. I don't think that'll happen, but there's so many possibilities. And I don't think that the Thunder will use all their draft picks. I say that for sure. As far as other free agents and things like that, there's been a lot of talk about I don't think they'll get any big free agents this year. I think it'll be next season that they'll try to start winning and go out and get free agents. I don't think it'll be this season. But I do think that, there's been talk of Porzingis or Ben Simmons, all these different guys that the Thunder could possibly trade for. I think that the Thunder will ultimately trade for another bad contract because Kemba Walker's still a good player. And if Sam Presti thinks that he can flip Kemba Walker for a worse contract, but then he gets another first-round pick or a good young player, I think something like that will happen before the season.
I agree with you. There is so much possibilities in the draft with all those picks, and I'm pretty sure a lot of teams will be aggressive to trade up or maybe trade down and have a good player. So, I mean, Presti gonna do something. It's an obligation.
Yeah, he trades more than any GM in basketball, and he's got 6 draft picks. So there's no way he's not gonna trade. He's gonna be doing some trading, that's for sure.
Yeah, sure. Brandon, thank you so much to taking time to talk with us. It was a real pleasure to talking with you and to have more information about Scottie Barnes too, because Constantine was not that high on him, maybe a little bit higher now.
Good. I hope so, because there's a really good chance that the Thunder end up with him or Jonathan Kuminga. So yeah, I think that he would be a very positive impact player. And last thing I'll say is his personality. People love him. Like he is a part of loving the Thunder is they always get very likable guys. Like every player they bring in has a very good personality, whether they're funny or just a very good person in the community and those things. And Scottie Barnes is probably the most likable player off the court in this draft. So you'll definitely, even if you don't like his playing ability, you'll definitely like him as a person.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely very important for Presti. So I agree with you right now. So thank you so much, Brandon. I hope we can record a new episode maybe just before the season and talk about how Scottie Barnes gonna be the rookie of the year. And
and absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me on again, guys. Always a pleasure, and absolutely, I'll be more than happy to come on and talk before the season again too, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Voilà, c'est tout pour cet épisode en anglais, donc j'espère que ça vous a plu. On a pas mal parlé de Scottie Barnes, l'un des prospects qui risque de tomber au OKC avec ce choix 6. On a pas mal parlé de la reconstruction aussi, donc je vous répète, n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions ou à demander des traductions si vous en avez besoin. Et on se retrouve très vite, dès la semaine prochaine, pour un nouveau live ou un nouveau podcast. En attendant, abonnez-vous partout au podcast Up and Thunder, sur YouTube, sur toutes les plateformes d'écoute. N'hésitez pas à donner 5 étoiles, n'hésitez pas à donner vos retours aussi sur cet épisode en anglais. C'est quelque chose qu'on essaie de faire, on va essayer de faire régulièrement en ayant des invités petit à petit de plus en plus nombreux. Et voilà, on se retrouve très très vite. Bonne finale NBA qui approche un grand pas à tous. On va de plus en plus vous donner du contenu draft. Restez connectés. À bientôt et salut.